Hey, what's up, Trojan? How you doing, Trojan? Mana dia Trojan? Hey, Trojan, for the like. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Trojan? Sihat ke, Trojan? Nah, ni dia kuri-kuri. Dah baik tu, Trojan? Dinner, Trojan. So, kita nak dinner dulu. Je kau main apa malam ni, Trojan? Kita main apa ni? Kita main Warzone. Aku nak makan je. Kepek lagi ni layan ni. Tak, aku main Warzone. Aku salah tag game. Salah tag game. Aku nak main Warzone sebenarnya. Warzone pun aku tak boleh on. Oh, awak tak boleh on. Wah. Tengok aku punya star device. Tengok. Aku bulan ni cukup ke tak lah. Padahal aku bulan ni aku tak dapat star. So baiklah. Kan aku ada rumah. Alright. Aku berhenti. Oh wah. Tiga. Aku berhenti tak. Tak apa lah. Lagi kau tengok aku makan. Aku ada makanan. Adik aku belanja. Adik aku belanja baik. Tengok aku tanya tak makan lah. Macam tak ada benda kat bawah. Nak makan apa kan. Kita apa dulu penuh yang tak ada ni. Lagi tak boleh main game. Tak apalah dulu. Esok tu macam mana kau pergi kurang ke apa? Aku nak pergi tapi Ahad aku pun tak ada dulu. What's up, Verify for Psycho? Thank you for the look. How you doing? Hopefully you have a great day, my man. Ya, aku nak makan jap. Aku tak makan lagi. Thank you for the look. Biasa ada nak jalan. Boring di rumah tu. Aku cukup bulan ni. Cukup. Apa tu? Let's go. Hari ni korang nak tengok aku makan mukbang tak guys? Mukbang. Thank you for the like and share. Bagi aku tukar. makan guys. Hey, what's up, man? Phil. Hi there. Hi. How you doing? Kita makan dulu ya guys. Kita dah makan dulu. Okay. Boleh korang nampak lah. Burger. Bogoi. Tak tahu berapa stack. Ni dia kura-kura. Doing guys. Thank you so much for coming by.
What is it?
Mantap.
Nani dia kuri-kuri.
Kuri-kuri. Mantap. Nanti korang tengok makan. Okay. Ready je tengok makan guys. Ready je. Korang sanggup. Nak makan belum? Okay, mukbang dah. Thank you so much for the share. Hey. Hey. Thank you for continuing the gift up. Hey. Ni the kuri-kuri cepi. Thank you for the donation of apa ni? Gift up. Mantap ni the kuri-kuri. Burger mantap. About that thing. Jen, ada lagi Jen. Sebelum kita start mukbang, pasang pintu. Ada orang boring kan.
It says, quote, cold floor cooling keeps thermals lower than a partly cloudy day with a light breeze and you without your jacket. What? Anyway, we're going to review this case and try to help you understand what it's trying to be, because we're not really sure what any of that means. This is clearly an 011 inspired case. It has the front corner chopped off though, so it starts to look more like an aquarium or a fish tank, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Y60 does some really interesting things with overall design. It's got a lot of complexity and really fine attention to detail in it, and it makes it one of the most interesting cases we've looked at recently, although there's a lot of testing you need to do on thermal. Before that, this video is brought to you by EVGA's X570 Dark motherboard. The EVGA X570 Dark is a high-end motherboard for AM4 CPU, built around extreme overclocking and tested heavily by EVGA's King 10. The X570 Dark has a uniquely rotated socket and RAM layout, 90-degree rotated cables for ease of installation and management, and tons of troubleshooting features to make building, testing, and overclocking easier. Check out EVGA's X570 Dark high-end motherboard at the link in the description below. So just to get this out of the way, HYTE, H-Y-T-E, is an iBuyPower brand. HYTE is not a new, out-of-nowhere thing. iBuyPower has been around for a couple decades at this point. So all they've done is spin off a new component-only division that's called HYTE. Patrick and I agreed with this decision because when we pulled the case out of the box to start the review, both of us looked at the case on our build table and had the same reaction, which was, wow, this looks a lot better than either of us expected it to be. And because of what GM is, our discussion that followed was, Why did we expect it was not going to be impressive? What bias or influence is there underneath that made us feel that way? We came up with the answer, iBuyPower. So it's good that iBuyPower has distanced itself from the component brand, because this is far better quality than we've ever seen from an iBuyPower computer. Bit of a backhanded compliment, but it is what it is. You take them where you can get them. Anyway, the Y60 is a $200 MSRP case. It comes in a few options. It's got black, white, or red. We intentionally chose red when Hype asked us which to send over, because it's the most unusual of the three options, and it's one of the trickiest to get right. We're actually impressed with the result too. The red coloring looks great here. And in some ways, perhaps it's not too surprising that this case does interesting and creative things with its design. The designer behind it, Rob Teller, doing a lot of the work, formerly worked at MDXT during its early glory days with the S340, the original S340, not the elite one that they sort of screwed up later. And the S340, although it wouldn't score as well today as it did for us back then, was fairly revolutionary in its ease of installation features and its cable management specifically. So we expect to see some good focus there on this case, since it's sort of the same designer behind much of it. This is what's fun too about reviewing cases, where as you work on them more and more, you start to see the different signatures of the different designers in the industry, and everyone's got something unique that they do well, and most of them have something that they do very poorly as well, so everyone's got really great things to do. So, cases that trade the usual black or white color schemes typically sell fewer units. Seeing a red or an off-color design indicates to us that the company is committing to this product pretty hard. A couple small attention to detail things right off the bat. So painted elements are limited to the side panel, the trim around the top and the bottom of the case, and the motherboard side of the PCIe riser heel. But the paint looks good and the plastic pieces match perfectly. The color and style, again, remind us of some of those NZXT cases, and obviously the 11, but it really deviates in a few ways. One of them is if you check out the grill work on the paneling, the side and the top, it's all very uniquely and deliberately cut, not in as sort of functional of an approach. Still somewhat functional, but the downside to the design that Height has taken here is that there is a lot of plastic and metal that sort of overlaps in a way where you end up with a good deal of flow and impedance, even though there's bottom intake and there's side intake options here. So, and then obviously top exhaust, if you want to go that route. Now, in terms of marketing, Height is branding this as being a liquid cooling focused case, much like the 011 would be, for example. And we use air cooling for our test system. Now, for the most part, these translate fairly one-to-one in terms of the relative performance between one system and another on a chart when you're looking at case-to-case variation and performance differences. However, with water cooling, you can overcome or at least overlook or ignore some of the limitations that are imposed by a case, because there's more brute force ability to get past those limitations with liquid. All the panels come off really easily, like that. The back of the case is actually really interesting as well, where it looks pretty good. It's got the dual chamber design and sort of starts us off on the right foot. So let's get started with the build notes and talk about the Y60. Immediately with this case, we noticed attention to detail element. The Height H is molded into the fans, for example, not just put on a sticker. And more branding is punched into the motherboard tray and the hard drive bays. On the back of the case, there's all kinds of markings. None of this adds to the actual functionality, really, or the quality of the case, but it certainly adds the impression of quality. And it looks good. Everything looks clean and purpose-built. And panel fitment is tight everywhere except between the glass panels, where the gaps seem more intentional. All glass in the case is removable. The glass panels are actually structural. The corner then of the case should be supported if you do remove the glass, but it is all easily removable. The dual chamber layout popularized by Lian Li is tried and true at this point. Moving the power supply and the drive bays behind the motherboard tray creates a large cable management channel in the vital location between the power supply and the front edge of the motherboard. But it also allows the case to be shorter and appear smaller than a conventional mid-tower. The rubber grommets that give access to that cable management space are molded so that they're open at all times, rather than being bent out of position when cables are passed through them. We recommend staying below the maximum power supply length of 235 millimeters. Our 160mm power supply left plenty of room, but longer power supplies will not. Tie points are provided along every cable path, though, including several on the back of the case for tying up peripheral. Routing cables from the front I/O to the motherboard can be tricky since the bottom chamber of the case is isolated. The cables can be reached through the bottom of the case by removing the bottom filter, or through the side of the case by removing the side panel. But the cutout between the bottom chamber and the side power supply chamber is hard to read from any angle in an assembled system. As for fans, there are no mounts for front fans, but there are side mounts which perform basically the same function here. Having all of this glass in the front,
Hey, what's up?
as we've talked about
What's
with
up, Faris?
11 cases,
Thank
it
you for
doesn't
coming by.
make things worse.
Grabe mukbang lo guys.
Keep them closed
Sorry
off,
ako lambat.
as long as there's side intake and or bottom intake, which is achieved here. Height's design diverges though from Lian Li with its partitioned off bottom
Thank you,
chamber
Jazelle,
that
for
houses
coming by.
the
What's up?
20 mil
Morning.
fan. Tucking the fans into this chamber almost completely hides them from view. It certainly adds a lot more plastic and impedance in the way as well, which we'll talk about momentarily, but it does hide them, and that results in potentially a cleaner looking build than in an 011 with bottom mounted fan. It also, however, eliminates any possibility of bottom mounting the radiator. Now, ultimately, the loss of the radiator isn't huge because the vertical GPU mount would prevent mounting a radiator in the bottom anyway. So this is a feature that was already traded off for somewhere else. The primary radiator mounting location is the side of the case with plane support for radiators up to 15 centimeters thick. That is massive. That's significantly more than even AlphaCool's giant monster radiator. So plan to use this mount for radiators, fans, and a reservoir, or some combination of the three. Otherwise, it's wasted space. In contrast, the removable top mount only supports radiators up to 28 millimeters thick, ruling out a large array of open-loop radiators. That's assuming you obey the manual suggestion anyway, to install the radiator on top with the fans underneath. It's possible to fit a thicker sub 360mm radiator on the underside, but it's not officially supported. Full-length 360mm radiators must be installed on top of the tray and must have their barbs positioned at the front of the case, where there's a cutout for tubes. Installing anything on the underside of the tray will block access to the cable cutouts above the motherboard. It's a shame that there aren't any full-size horizontal expansion slots in the Y60 at all. Height had to make some tough choices to hit a target cost, and this was one of them. It's also one of the larger items that was cut in order to hit that cost target. It makes some sense given the Y60's focus on liquid cooling, as liquid-cooled cards aren't affected by being pressed up against the side panels like air-cooled cards are. But it's a major limiting factor for an ATX case to only fit one full-size add-in card. Even if you're not using multi-GPU in the old-school sense, there's still use for multiple large add-in devices. There's a full set, at least, of horizontal low-profile slots that will fit some non-GPU PCIe devices like SSDs, NICs, capture cards, things like that, but the lowest slots are blocked by the riser cable, and it also starts to create a trap for heat depending on what you're running in there. For example, some of the capture cards run a little bit hotter and probably would benefit from additional intake if you can get it. We suspect the lack of full-size horizontal slots will mostly be the dominating piece of conversations about the Y60. Because the GPU must be mounted vertically, it's difficult to do any system building or maintenance with the GPU installed. All the PCIe slots, the USB headers, the front panel headers, and every other port on the bottom half of the board, they're all obstructed by the GPU and the riser cable, which must be either removed or really frustratingly worked around. So make sure you build this in the correct order to reduce those frustrations. Drives can be stored in two floating sleds at the rear of the case. Each sled can fit either one 3.5-inch drive or two 2.5-inch drives, but there's no vibration damping provided, so SSDs are preferable. The sleds eject from the rear of the case, as they do in the Lian Li 011 cases, so some more inspiration drawn there, but there are no rails and no hot swap connectors. Now, eATX is something we've complained about in the past. eATX support in this instance, though, means that there are no obstructions to prevent larger than ATX motherboards from being installed. But there are also no additional standoffs or support. Any boards that are even slightly wider than ATX will overhang the cable.
Hey, what's up? Afi Anwar, welcome to the stream. How you doing?
And this, in combination with side-mounted radiator and fan combos, may make the cutouts more difficult to access. It's complemented the case's appearance, but some aspects of it don't bode well for thermal results. The bottom filter snaps in flush, for example, with the bottom of the case, and it's reinforced with decorative diagonal crossbars to match the rest of the case. This is an unusual amount of attention to pay to a completely hidden part of the case, and it just causes more impedance to flow anyway. All the extra plastic in those crossbars, it's an obstacle, and it's an expense, and that problem is replicated in the interior bottom of the case as well. It's also replicated in the steel side panel and the top panel. They all look great, and they all include more layers of material than is actually necessary. This is probably part of why the marketing is toward liquid cooling. Yes, it looks better in a fish tank case, but it also has to brute force its way past some of these flow impedance limitations, and those
Ada baik ke tu Afiq
affect
Anwar?
liquid cooling as well. It's just you're able to overcome a lot of that. We performed our normal suite of tests, but for our no front panel test, we instead this time removed the bottom filter from the case. For our standardized fan test, we placed the two intake fans on the side mounts since there's no front mount. When we received our sample unit, Height volunteered up front that, quote, Height intended the Y60 to be used with a liquid cooler, and that, quote, use of an air cooler will result in higher GPU and CPU temperatures. Duh, that's just always true. But okay. And also, they said that two fans should be installed on the side for intake. Obviously, adding two more fans would lead to better thermals for just about any case. There are times if you install them in ways that are conflicting with the existing fans, that wouldn't be the outcome. But for this situation, we don't need a test to know that two extra fans are going to benefit this case. If we just set up all cases how companies suggested, they'd all have extra fans added to compensate for shortcomings of design, or to just compensate for not including any fans to begin with. Instead, we ran a pass with two stock bottom intake fans moved to the side so that we could evaluate the case as it is built and with the fans that it's supplied with against the two possible configurations that Height could have chosen for the default. We'll start with just the Height Y60 and some O11 dynamic data on the chart and then add everything else. Torture workload CPU temperature average was 57 degrees Celsius above ambient in the fully stock configuration, with all case fans running at the usual 100%. Removing the bottom filter resulted in less than 1 degree of change, which is within our error margin. If anything, this implies that the bottom fans aren't doing much for the CPU to begin with. The Y60 is deficient in an area that could be useful for the CPU and the GPU alike because there isn't enough pressure to really overcome all of the impedance and get all the way up to the CPU's level. Moving the bottom fans to the side backed up this conclusion as CPU temperatures dropped significantly down to 49 degrees with this change. Again, this is apparently something Height is aware of. The Y60 is explicitly focused on liquid cooling, especially in its stock config. The O11 showed similar behaviors in some ways. We saw better performance for the CPU with side intake as it's closer to the CPU and it faces less impedance. Compared to the rest of the chart, 57 degrees is on the hotter side. Comparing the Y60 to the O11D, the O11XL, and the O11 Evo may not be completely fair since we had to add our own fans to land these cases, but all three average better than the Y60, and we'll get over to the standardized fans in a moment. Moving the Y60's intake fans to the more air cooling friendly side mount casts it in a far better light, putting it on par with the Be-Quiet 500DX's 49 degree average, and we actually like that case. Although the stock fan equipped the O11 Air Mini did still significantly better at 44 degrees average. The Y60 can definitely be made to be good in cooling for air-cooled systems or liquid-cooled systems, but it takes more care than more standard cases. It's similar to its build order in that way, where additional care
Yang ni tak saya seron.
and if it is, it becomes one of the best cases. GPU temperatures are up now. We started out at 59 degrees above ambient with the stock configuration. Moving the intake fans to the side panels did help slightly, pushing the average down to about 58, but the GPU's fans face the opposite direction, as does the plastic shroud from the intake fans and benefit less
Aku
directly
mute
than
dia
the
terus
CPU power cooler. Removing the bottom filter from the case had more of an effect, dropping the average down to 56 degrees, which is actually a pretty big movement in GPU thermals. In their stock positions, the bottom intake fans are mostly behind the backplate of the GPU, so their ability to cool it is limited even without the filter. The Y60 is not outdoing the O11 Dynamic thus far, but we'll look at that standardized fan testing momentarily. 59 degrees stock or 58 degrees with the side intake, either way, these aren't competitive numbers, although the Y60 at least has the comfort of the O11 Air Mini's company with an identical 59 degree average. We're well acquainted with the fact that air-cooled GPUs don't perform well when they're mounted vertically unless they're pushed sufficiently far back against the motherboard instead of the glass. Our test GPU is a dual-slot design, and therefore it had approximately 4 centimeters of clearance between the side panel and its fans. But a triple-slot cooler would be nearly flush with the glass and completely suffocated, and 3 slots is not uncommon these days. 3.5 is actually pretty common now, so don't put an air-cooled GPU in here. It's it's not going to do well. This is not an ideal case for air-cooled GPUs. It's definitely unsuitable for 3+ slots. Rendering our Blender test scene on the CPU only, so eliminating the GPU workload, raised its average temperature to 38 degrees above ambient. That's a more favorable result relative to the rest of the chart than, say, in the torture test before. The bottom to top airflow means that the GPU load affects CPU thermals. So in a test where the GPU isn't loaded, the CPU runs cooler. The Y60 is tied here with the original O11D in a configuration with 3 120mm side intake fans. GPU thermals stacked up the same way they did in the original torture test, with a 27-degree average tying the O11 Air Mini at the upper end of the chart. The bottom intake fans could certainly benefit the GPU a lot more if it were lying flat over them, that is, rather than sitting perpendicularly. The Firestrike Extreme test results replicated the torture test average of 59 degrees, as demonstrated by the Blender tests. Running an isolated GPU workload doesn't help much in the Y60, as the GPU is untouched by the CPU's exhaust. The Y60 maintains its chart position and GPU thermals near the O11 Air Mini and the original Cooler Master 8500T, with the triple intake O11D landing at a much lower 53-degree average. We can use our standardized fan test for a direct comparison to the O11 family cases that don't come equipped with stock fans. The O11D Evo Mesh was performed with front intake, the O11D Evo Glass was performed with side intake, and the O11D XL was performed with bottom intake, since the XL can't side mount 140mm fans. But they all use the same fans, same RPM, and as mentioned earlier, we ran side intake in the Y60 for this test. The CPU average dropped to 47 degrees with the standardized fans, lower than any of the tests using the Y60 stock fans in placement. That's hotter than most of the Lian Li results, with the Evo Mesh leading significantly. The Evo has an improved mesh side panel, while the Y60 is stuck competing with the original O11D. The Y60's GPU thermals still weren't great, with standardized fans resulting in a 54-degree average, but the O11 didn't do especially well either. The mesh-fronted Evo, for example, averaged 55 degrees over ambient, and the glass version averaged 53, and that's just because of how the air escapes the case with the two different versions. The exception is the XL with its bottom intake fans, which put it at an average of 47 degrees. With powerful fans, side intake, and a dual-slot GPU, the Y60 is at least not much worse than the competition. Noise normalizing the Y60 to our 36 dBA threshold required reducing the case fans to 75% speed to bring it down from 39.6 dBA. The Y60 is fairly quiet for a 3-fan case at maximum speed, but that's the result of hiding the fans in a chamber at the bottom of the case, surrounded by filters and plastic. The CPU average rose to 59 degrees from a baseline that wasn't great to begin with, keeping it at the hot end of the chart, just below another bottom intake result, the O11XL, when they were noise normalized, the same noise level. The GPU averaged 60 degrees, also at the hot end. Together, those results put the Y60 on par with the Fractal F2 Vision RGB in this test, which is a case that we said was, quote, not even trying. So we spent the last few minutes of the chart being mostly critical of the Y60 for its thermal performance and its performance characteristics. But in spite of that, we actually do like this case. It's pretty rare for Patrick and I to say as a team. We review a lot of cases. Most of them look very similar, and the dividing line is typically, does it have stupid design elements that ruin an otherwise good case, or does it not have those? And this one has design elements that are unique, but don't completely derail the case from being usable. That's not common. The immediate impression of the case that we get and people get is one of quality from the material and panel quality, the fitment, where there's
Sabawan.
anywhere other than perhaps it makes
Kena bagi nyanyi ya dulu baru boleh win. Lagu aku unik apa? Satu je antara dunia. Jangan engkau ingat nanti diubah lagi. Ya jalan lah. Dapat maybe lepas 24 jam aktif baru keluar button, so wait je lah MC. Alright. Mungkin lah, betul lah juga tu. Maybe that. I think lepas 24 jam kot. Sebab bear pun nak send kat diri sendiri pun tak boleh. I think that's the only explanation lah yang kita boleh buat. Okay, thank you Moon. Thank you so much for the donation. Semoga rumah rezeki dipanjangkan, umur diperbagakan lagi. Lupa kunya rahmatnya untuk Moon for the donation. Moon Mahat. Mazap. Thank you Moon. Sebab lagi betul. Bear pun still baru. So macam adalah harap kita dapat kan. Tapi alamak, ada shader lah pula installing. Sekejap. Oh ya Allah. Aku lupa lagi nak tengok meta gun lagi ni. Sekejap meta gun. Okay. Boleh. Apa lah? Kenapa? Yalah tu. Patut ayammu kena sebut nama. Tak apa, kita sebut nama panjang-panjang. Percayalah kalau korang tulis nama korang panjang kan, sepanjang-panjang tu lah biar baca. Tak tipu je. Warzone. Alright ni 22 hour.
Custom certified. Cara pembelian kereta yang terjamin. Muaturon aplikasi Custom sekarang.
Delicious Nutella and puffed wheat crispy.
Banyak iklan benda lah ni kan, banyak no iklan dia. Moon dah dinner ke Moon? Hopefully you have a great day today Moon. Nah ni dah kuri. Dia ni sama je macam COD mobile Moon. Tapi dia untuk versi PC. So kenalah kita selalu tengok dia punya meta gun lah, apalah, semua kena tengok.
Video, let me know by dropping a like on it. Let's try and aim for 2,500 likes on this one. And if you're new to the channel or if you're a part of the 54% of viewers who have not already subscribed,
kalau makan ada makanan dari pasti.
software site where we can see all the weapon changes here with different colors so that it's easier to understand. For this week for the playlist though, first and foremost we got Zombies Royale going on, but we also have standard BR quads, solos, duos, and trios on there as well. Plunder quads is available too. We've got Rebirth of the Dead quads and then also standard Resurgence quads and all the squad sizes for Resurgence on Fortune's Keep as well.
Terima kasih kena bagi Moon makan ke everyone.
Later on in season, August 11th through the
From Masjid,
24th,
thank you so much for coming by.
Trials endurance event, and this is the whole Terminator.
Oh ni
crossover
11 bulan birthday bear. Dia
including
punya challenge tu.
a brand new camo as well, an animated camo called Liquid Metal. I was actually able to sit down with Raven earlier on this week in a call and talk about some of this really cool stuff. So there's some very cool challenges and everything that we'll talk about once this event is actually closer to happening. But there's a lot of new challenges to actually win various things there, including some secret ones like win 20 times in Titanium Trials, which give you a brand new camo as well. For modes, of course, we've got Rebirth of the Dead. This is going to be just like Zombies Royale back over on Verdansk, one of the goated modes. Keep where you can't mantle certain boxes in the sea caves. An issue with the Sten
Bukan semua dapat reel tu. Bukan semua dapat reel tu. Silap bear.
Having incorrect names. An issue with the scaled snipe, where some weapons would be unusable when swapping optic attachments. An issue causing the gravity inversion execution to throw downed enemies in an incorrect distance. An issue with the squad placement indicator in Plunder. Then lastly, an issue with the false prospector camo from being applied to weapons. That's the Fortune's Keep camo, I believe. And of course, they got the Trello board, which we're always looking at week by week. For general updates, private match support is coming in season to Fortune's Keep.
Tu lah, tak sama dapat kan. So rezeki lah, siapa yang dapat. So WhatsApp Isak Anwar, welcome to the stream. Jangan lupa tekan notify and follow I. Hopefully korang semua baik-baik saja. Moon, esok buat apa Moon? Moon ada main Valorant.
and you can find them as ground loot, or if you do a supply drop contract.
Ada main Valorant tak pun?
Bomber planes are also back now in Caldera Battle Royale. This is the nerfed version of them, so hopefully they won't be too obnoxious, if you know what I'm saying. For quality of life updates, teammate buyback. Previously, if a player had enough money and a redeploy token, it would always use the redeploy token. Now you're going to have the option to use the money first, which is really nice. The gas circle on Fortune's Keep also being
Ada main
updated.
tapi nuk main
The radius
Warzone.
size and the time is gonna rebalance to make the match a little bit more fast.
Boleh je. Biar pun kan pandai sangat pun main Warzone ni. Epic streaming. Thank you Fazil Rostam untuk 140 star donation. Mantap dia. Nak main semula Warzone. Boleh main. Kalau nanti kalau nampak mantap. Sezi hadir dolar hadir. Mantap tu kuri-kuri. Thank you Fazil Rostam for the 140 star. Semoga terima kasih banyak umur dia berbagai lumpur kunyah rahmatnya untuk Fazil Rostam for the 140 dolar. Nah ni dia kuri-kuri.
The perk will drop shortly after the mid-season launch to Serpentine in particular. So
thank you. Ada dolar nak main semula Warzone boleh mun nanti. Join.
In a few days apparently is
ada
what was said. So
member baru main juga Warzone.
Perhaps later this week, maybe early next week.
Tak tahulah dia orang main malam ni ke tak.
Tactical equipment, the thermite was actually buffed a little bit, so that'll make it a little bit more, I guess, advantageous to use. I still wouldn't use it over like a throwing knife or a semtex, even though, to be honest. Base weapons from Vanguard Season 1 through 3 have been unlocked for all players, which is really cool. So if you don't have certain Vanguard weapons unlocked, now you do, but only through the first 3 seasons. Now, new weapons, we've got the Vargo S. It doesn't go through the unlock challenge, but in Vanguard, it said it was just 15
Thank you
range
for
kill,
the
which is
like.
ridiculously
Thank you
easy.
for the roses.
I'm not sure if that's
Sezi.
gonna end up being the challenge. I feel like that
Tapi
might
bila
be
stream je lag.
but for whatever reason, it's
Mun
not
ada letak
pushed,
setting ni tak pun?
on the
Sekejap.
patch notes
Biar
here.
tunjuk.
We also have the Vanguard Zombies camo
Okay,
cell,
buka
which
ni.
is really cool. So anyone
Tekan ni.
who-
Entahlah memang minat
very
tapi
rough
PC
grind
low
now
spec.
have those to use
Ni.
in-game.
Ada
Adaptive
on,
weapons,
ada
they're
tick
gonna
yang
be
this one tak?
return, which basically have,
SLI.
various different perks on them. So it'll be
Capture
grip
slow ni.
and something like
On yang ni.
potentially, or a bunch of different Vanguard
Pastikan
weapon perks are gonna be-
Mun guna game
that's actually
capture
really cool. Like
dia
it says,
specific
combination
window,
super
lepas tu
fleet,
slow
steady,
mode ni.
hard scope, brace,
Mesti
so
on
and
slow
so
mode
forth.
ni supaya tak dia tak teruk sangat.
The main menu that says, hey, you know, this weapon's being used a lot right now. It could be really good for your classes, so that'll be flagged as recommended. So it's pretty cool as well. Now we get to weapon adjustments, so let's head over to the clean ravensoftware.com version.
Right now,
So
nak
here
kena
they say the
tengok
current health of the
meta.
long-range rifle category is not where we'd like it to be. As it stands, the best performing builds are ones that have the least amount of recoil. It's time to change that. So on the bar, for the 30-inch barrel, the recoil control was decreased in general. On the 27-inch barrel, the horizontal control was decreased. There's no horizontal control on the bar. On the Clouser 40, that control was also decreased as well. On the Chariot WR, same deal. And for hard scope, the control that provides has been decreased. So in general, the bar is not going to be as much of a laser.
Pakai sini lah OBS tak
STG
pandai.
had its horizontal
Pakai sini
control
lah OBS tak
decreased for the
pandai. Tak
760 barrel and the precision barrel.
pandai.
The
Oh
Cooper
tak,
and
lebih
the
kurang
600
je.
drums had their
Mun.
horizontal control decreased.
Serius.
On the Intra Burst, the muzzle velocity was actually increased. a little
OBS
bit.
dengan
I'll go ahead and zoom
Streamlab
in
ni
too.
sama je lebih
NZ,
kurang.
here's a big one.
Cuma
Sustainable
banyak
recoil
benda
was
manual.
decreased. That's huge.
And
Our
dia banyak
recoil
benda
numbers
untuk
that hopefully
plugin-plugin yang
balance it out. So the max
macam
damage
bell
range
tunjuk
was
ni. Okay.
decreased by a few meters.
Yang ni,
The minimum
yang atas
damage
ni.
was decreased a decent bit.
Ini
Minimum damage is
untuk
the long
stream
range
ke
damage.
tempat
So
lain
the
selain
high
Facebook.
range
Maksudnya
range,
2-3
the
tempat macam
multiplier
kalau
also decreased. So
ada Mun nak stream dekat tempat-tempat lain. So sinilah yang Mun dia ada plugin-plugin je Mun boleh install secara percuma dan start live on apa ni. Start live macam bell live dekat YouTube kan. Ni, jap saya tunjuk.
Actually got buffed. We just talked about this the other day.
Jenny?
This weapon's insanely good, and I think a lot of players are going to start using this. So the movement speed scale was increased, and the
So ni
ADS
Bel punya
speed
YouTube.
scale was increased.
Nampak ni.
On the
Bel
Emperor
punya
613
YouTube.
barrel also, I think this is a barrel.
Bel punya
the
Twitch.
decreased ADS penalty was decreased a little bit, but it's got
Bel
better
punya
control,
Facebook.
and the spring penalty was decreased. Then on the 60
Banyak
round
ah.
range, the
Senang
ADS
ah.
range was decreased
Yang
a bit.
TikTok
The
macam mana?
velocity
Yang
was also
TikTok pun
decreased,
actually
but the
sama je.
fire accuracy was increased. So that's the
Lagi
recoil
TikTok tu pun sama je sebenarnya. Cuma
laser
sekarang
magazine
sebab Bear tak dapat
was
stream key. Kalau Bear ada stream key, kalau kita nak
Surprisingly,
guna benda ni senang je.
KG SMG, the max
Kita
damage range
tekan
was
ni
increased,
atas
the
kali
minimum
ni.
damage, so long range damage was decreased by 1.
Kita tekan yang atas ni.
Headshot multiplier was
Target
decreased.
mana? Dia
Shot
mana?
barrel also had
Server
its
dia ada
result
bagi kan?
control
Server dia bagi.
increased by 15%, and the 30-06 60 round drums, the
Yang server key ni yang penting ni. Ni kita dapat.
There's a new top tier weapon based off of those nerfs, unfortunately. The AMAX.
So-
We got some buffs. Also, a buff to the kilo. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. AMAX minimum damage increase, so long range damage is better now. Headshot multiplier is better. The kilo minimum damage step was removed. The kilo is back. I'm just gonna throw it out right now. The minimum damage, long range damage was also increased significantly.
So kita nak setting dia pun boleh manual.
Increased by a few meters. The Krig mid damage increased a little bit, which is not too bad. Also, the headshot multiplier was increased. So Krig honestly making its way back up into the meta.
So keyframe kita boleh buat custom. So macam ni kan kalau nak modify.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna tweet about this really quick. Alright, my tweet's sent. If you don't follow me over
Resolution tu pun kita boleh setting.
The Volk headshot locational multiplier was
Tak apa
increased.
10,000.
So that'll be a little bit stronger. The Granco 40 has more capacity now. No damage penalty, but
Easy
range
je.
is worse, so
Kita
it's
dah ada
cool,
stream
but its
key.
fire rate's better. On the
Kita dah ada
mag,
server,
damage
just letak dalam
penalty,
tu
fire
and
rate
boleh terus
increased,
stream.
damage
Tak ada
range
masalah.
decreased though, then on the 45 round drums, better velocity, better damage bonus, but worse vertical control. For SMGs, the Armaguerra had its precision barrel headshot multiplier or locational damage decrease, and I'm pretty sure that's the barrel that ends up helping the actual damage on headshots, so kind of an unfortunate nerf there. The Blixen headshot multiplier decreased, minimum damage decreased, movement speed scale decreased. So there's some Blixen nerfs there. On the RMK barrel, the minimum damage was also decreased, but the F3 barrel is still the best barrel.
Wah,
And the 54 mags
tapi
headshot
tak
damage
perlu
was also
sangat
decreased
pun
a bit.
macam
Damage in general on the Blixen
PC
gonna
bear
feel a little
pun
bit worse.
tak
That
adalah
should help
power
balance
sangat
it out
pun.
some, but I don't think that's fully a nerf that's going to take it out of the meta. The Marco, though, actually got some significant nerfs as well. Max damage, so close range and mid damage, both end up getting nerfed there. And the neck multiplier was also decreased, and the Lesto barrel multipliers have been removed entirely. The UGR actually got a buff here. Upper extremity locational damage multiplier increased. Max damage range and mid damage range all increased as well. Still kind of a niche weapon. I'm not sure if that one will be top tier. The Uzi ended up getting a minimum damage range increase and a neck multiplier increase. And the MP5 max damage range increased, locational for the neck increased as well. Now for shotguns, the following shotguns max pellet damage have been increased by 26%. For the Ironhide, the Ironhorn, the double barrel, the combat, the
bila
725
content
model
streamer
60,
ni you have to like watch this thing sebab kau nak tahu. Oh, kalau nak copy tu. Kalau nak copy tu dia sebab dia dah bagi stream key tu, copy je, paste je ke multiple output tu. Pasal dia stream tu lo kena letak string kat PC. Baru masa nak try stream kena stream TikTok dulu baru letak stream key kat PC. Lain pula TikTok tapi TikTok bagi Bear dia punya leceh ni, dia punya komen tu Bear tak dapat nak baca komen sangat. So right now Bear tengah planning nak beli apa ni tab supaya Bear boleh baca komen. Sekarang ni pun Bear pakai satu lagi phone, is not tak berapa besar and tak berapa nampak actually. Alright.
Had its minimum pellet damage increased. So they're gonna do more damage, but
TikTok kena download kat PC juga. Ada. Bear ada dia punya app tu. Kejap. Mana benda lah tu? Ada TikTok Bear punya app. Tapi tak ada stream key lagi, susah lah. Dia tak boleh buat apa pun. Ya, nampak ni. TikTok Live Studio. Bear punya second screen dah penuh dengan apa? Chat, activity feed, YouTube, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Dah tak tahu nak letak mana. Dah penuh dah Bear punya screen ni. Bear punya screen pun dah penuh. Ini TikTok Live Studio actually. Bear tak pernah pakai lagi juga benda lah ni. Tak tahu pun nak pakai macam mana. So macam tengok tengok dulu macam mana. Maybe like certain game Bear boleh main sebab dia running parallel of each other kan. So CPU gonna like make it hotter. Alright, jom. TikTok Live Studio. So jom tengok apa benda ni TikTok live studio ni. Guys. Loading lambat. Hell. I think this one is like almost like OBS lah. Live studio will be available in the future. You will receive a notification in TikTok. Invited to go to live studio. Tapi right now, okay. So tak ada access lagi. So I don't have any access yet. What the hell is banjo? Never mind lah benda lah tu. Alright. Mu tengah rekod. Mu tengah rekod. Saya pun tak tahu apa benda lah tu. So ya. Later nak install. Ada benda baru. Rebirth of the Dead. Macam menarik itu. So banyak benda baru dekat Warzone right now. Dia cakap Uzi is meta. I don't know about that. Ada meta is like you can kill people with it lah. Alright. Moon try buat dulu. Alright. Boleh Moon. Try dulu lah. Nanti kita tengok macam mana. Okay tak? Dia punya tuan. Boleh nanti apa ni. Follow. Hey, what's that? Naturalisto. Okay, Wan. Hydrate Wan. Hey, what's up, Lino? Kilo is back, Lino. Kilo is back. Let's go. Lino dah. Hi, Sam. Smile, Lino. Jadi simple sikit kan. Aku letak semua satu side kan. Go, Wan. For coming by. Nation, Lino, what's up, what's up, what's up? Nah, ni dia kuri. Hey, what's up, Dragon Warrior? Welcome to the stream. Let's go Publicbear. Ada baik ke tu? Ada baik. Kilo kah? So kaya dah. Kilo tengah meta. Dragon Warrior. Thank you so much for coming by. What's up, what's up? How you doing? Ni ada zombie. Ada zombie ni. Okay macam ni. Padu kan? Kilo dah back. Kilo is back, everybody. Kau tahu masa aku terlepas. Teruskan tu. Dekat atas tu. Hai, tembak mat. Dari belakang ke timur tengah. Kau masa je. Tembak dari belakang, baik. The comment says I'm using a chip to unlock the skin. Pretty much it's not true because I do live every day for grinding the shit out of the game. For grinding the shit out of the game. Sekejap pretty much people see live every day. Okay, macam ni padu. Betul. The things that I wanted because I do bukan. I think it's like 42. Itu dah lah tu. And you have to be specific. There's certain gun that you need to unlock to get it, but certain guns actually don't need to unlock. I think I have my IG post about it. Sekejap aja jalan. Hasil ni Miko. Aku terstream. Thank you for the alert. Alright. Sekejap. Campakkan. Bodoh. Siapa pula main? Ya Allah. Kecil aku.
Dari belakang.
Bahaya siang.
Aku tembak dengan dia punya ulti kena tu. Bawah, belakang. Apa? Belakang. Orang bersin.
Enggak aku.
Siapa Kenapa pergi
Letak. Letak api dekat bom. Try jap ni reverse apa Plunder kuat jap.
Dragon.
Mantap lah tu.
Kat sini.
Okay, on the way. Dah seorang. Gone. Oh, 3 aku dapat.
3 aku dapat. Watak Kamaria 81 control stream nani dek kuri. Okey macam ni padu betul. Padu tak padu. Okey. Siapakah jiwa-jiwa yang ketiga? Masa orang pakai URG baik. Ada orang dah pakai URG. Mantap kali.
Enemy dropping into the AO.
Still URG.
Going to the war zone.
Reanimated apa bondo jang tomo nungajo. Jangan diucap selamat tinggi. Jangan jadi cinggi itulah. Jangan dicinggikan hati orang lagi.
Rebirth of the dead. Die out there.
Jangan ditinggi, hati ditinggi. Jangan ditinggikan hati tinggi.
Take them down. You're being tracked by an enemy team. Tread carefully. Tower is online. Scanning for threats. Information meters near maximum. Prepare for hell. Enemy target identified. Have a little fun, yeah?
What's up, Mimos? Welcome to the stream. How you doing, bro? Thank you, Mimos, for coming by. Welcome to the stream. How you doing? Alah, dia terbuka meh. Masuk dia buka balik. Apa benda, bai? Oh, ye laut. Oh, ye laut. Yo ya indahnya Cina sang surya. Alamak. Dia pakai melee. Dia pakai melee di tengah jalan. Dia pakai melee di tengah. Menang. Oh, menanglah saya. Belicious di tengah jalan. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Yeah, baby. Nani de kuri kuri. Let's go, 3 orang menang kan. Okay. Patino please. Cari zombie Empat kan kita jadi zombie. Cari zombie win kan. Rebel Island. Apa benda Jai? Apa benda Jai? Nah ni dah kiri-kiri. GG guys. What the hell you guys doing kan? Kill 7. Mantap. So kita nak saja try fun main mode Zamber. Awau. Andikan bersambah jiwa hatiku. Jangan dibalikkan hatimu tabak. Mutabak itu sangat fresh untuk kurang. Jangan kau sangka mutabak itu. Oh mutabaknya. Janji di mutabak. Jangan dikerdu. Mutabak hati. Jangan begitu. Mutabak hati. Oh biar janji. Mutabak itu sia-tiadanya menjadi hancur tari hancur jiwa. Sia saja cinta. Siapa yang ku nantikannya. Diucap selamat tinggal untuk tiada usah diragukan lagi. Mencarinya tak terkuta lama. Usah dihitu. Cinta. Siapa hati untukmu? Siapa yang hadirnya padamu? Siapa untuk cinta di dalam jiwa ragaku ini? Memori yang tak datang menghentikan cinta. Memori yang hanyut di lautan. Lagu ini tiada kaitan dengan kamu semua. What's up? How you guys doing? Hopefully you guys have a great day today, guys. Ada baik ke tu? What's up, Memos? Memos buat apa, Memos? Tak ozon ke hari ni? Kita hari ni ada gun buff, iaitu gun kilo. Yang tadi pun aku dapat kill like a few kill guna kilo. Aku macam, it's viable. It's viable. Mungkin the SMG lah, I need to change it up. What the most viable SMG? I don't know.
No.
OP ba? Diyan ba kaya pa Mastiff?
Epistemic. What's up Makcik Don? How you doing? Tengah tengok apa ni? Gun. Kilo is back Makcik Don. Kilo is back. Kena main benda lah tu ya Don Nani kuri Don. Nani kuri. Nah, saya mainkan. Saya ada satu chat point yang korang boleh redeem. Aku ada satu chat point korang boleh redeem. Cuba Don tekan Don. Ada Don. Ada satu chat point korang boleh redeem. Tak mau takut. And kentut sama COD. Dia request kita play. Dari papa. Nani de don. Ada sound. Tengok ni Don. Ada zombie Don. Ada zombie. Sekarang banyak I think next week kot. 11 bulan. Untuk Don punya, siapa yang tekan Don punya tu, kita play dua-dua. Kita play yang this one. Kita play. Kita play yang this one. Dua. Betul lah. Setiap dia kena ada nombor baru. Apa lah. Beli je lah nombor yang... Alah, pergi kedai Aceh depan rumah Don tu je. Ada jual nombor kan sekarang. Nak beli nombor. Lepas tu cakap bye. Dulu kedai Aceh tu kan. Beli nombor kejap je. Tiga apa yang setahun tak payah top up. Aku pun kena top up. Nanti dia aku pun kena top up lah ni. Diorang pun dah nak cakap we will cancel your subscription bla 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 macam lah. Tak pernah upload. MP7 free until you die Ben. Ni M13 pun dah rebel lah kan, nak gincing je. Alah, Makcik Lek sini. Alright Makcik Don. Alright, untuk Makcik Don kita bagi satu.
Manisaya.
Dengar Makcik Don. Dengar tak Makcik Don?
Manisaya. Thank you.
Thank you Makcik Don for the alert. Alright, let's go. We gotta go. Asalnya chopper dia macam tak siap lagi. Bye. Mencarinya di hadapan ini.
Rebirth of the dead. Set a drop point for your team, soldier. Don't go dying.
Jangan keingat sinar sang surya, jangan mencobanya jiwa. Dalam memori mekar di hati.
headed your way. Move on.
Alright, let's go. Hey, alah, fuck. kerja aku.
Enemy UAV active.
You don't take the safe zone. It's time to move.
Enemy in the area. We're reaching peak infestation. Be ready for anything. Down a soldier. Zombie rising in hordes. Enemy soldier.
Aku tunggu. Enemy UAV active. Your squad mate became a zombie. Teammates regained their humanity. Teams in the top five. The last. Ah, DJ. DJ. Gitu Afam Nombor 3 guys. Nombor 3. Oh, also victory.
Return to base when
Also victory guys. Semua zombie guys. Semua zombie. Zombie win. Ingatkan zombie win tadi. Ingatkan zombie win guys. Kecewanya saya. Nombor 4. Nani Kuri. Hey, what's up, Rangas K? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? Oh, look, kita dah shout out kita dulu, Rangas. Ah, dah shout out. Pam 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 param pam 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 param pam pam pam.
Lari lagi pak tu. Dia pusing jam. Ni jam.
Hello, Bear.
Tak ni.
Tengah ni.
Oh, kat
Tengah
situ.
lawan, Bear.
Aku jaga engkau. Tak tu lagi kau tak nampak apa.
Tengah tu dia masuk habis. Dia masuk.
Oh, ada orang lain, ada orang lain kat hujung sana. Rasa kita kena belah, pergi kanan. Masuk zone. Kanan kita masuk zone.
Should you every day? I'm changing to the who I am before. Corak main River of the Dead tu. Put this music in China one. I want to be the one. As you are the only one to be. I on to you and I believe. To be to end on this moment, guess you be. Setiap hari ini ku bercaranya. Setiap jiwa yang berkelipan itu.
I want to show you all the best CPU and GPU combinations you can choose for a custom gaming PC in early 2022. Choosing the right processor and graphics card for your gaming PC is not that hard. It really just comes down to what works with your budget and what offers the features and performance that you're looking for. And fortunately, I've done all the work for you in this video, choosing out 10 different CPU and GPU combinations ranging in price. On that note, if you enjoy value-focused PC gaming content, you might want to subscribe to the Skydival channel. I'm not forcing you to, but I'm just personally recommending it. But what I will recommend is giving this video a thumb up. That way it can be recommended more in the algorithm to other want-to-be PC gamers looking to choose the right CPU and GPU combination for their next computer. So let's start with our honorable mention, which is the Ryzen 5 5600G for under $200. Now I know what you're asking. Where is the graphics card in the CPU and GPU combination? Well, this comes with one. On the processor end, it comes with a 6-core 12-threaded Ryzen processor that is overclockable. And on the graphics end, it comes with built-in integrated Vega graphics. So if you were to actually install this onto a motherboard and complete a gaming PC with it, you're going to be plugging in your display cable from the motherboard to your monitor, rather where there typically be a graphics card. And this is a really cool solution for those of you who can't afford a graphics card right off the bat, or at least the one that you want, and you just want to pass by with its integrated Vega graphics, which can leave you with some pretty decent 1080p gaming performance. Though when you do have the money for a graphics card, again, this is a 6-core Ryzen processor at the end of the day, and it can hold up to an RTX 3070 Ti or Radeon RX 6800 without any noticeable bottlenecking. So it's a pretty nice stopgap solution if you can't afford a graphics card right now, but want to do some budget 1080p gaming while you're waiting for it. So if you want to learn all the ins and outs of the 5600G, including how to overclock it for even more gaming performance, all of that is covered in my $500 gaming PC build video, which I'll link in the description and as a card on screen that'll show you everything you gotta know of how to best use this 5600G. And now we'll get into our first actual CPU and GPU combo for this video, but first I gotta give a thank you to our sponsor, VIP SCD Key. Alright, so for $300, I recommend getting an i3 12100 or i3 12100F and the Radeon RX 6500 XT. And this will be great for entry-level 1080p gaming performance, anywhere from medium to ultra settings depending on the game, from 60 to 144 frames per second. And if you want to get a really clear picture as to how well this CPU and GPU combination performs, check out my $700 gaming PC build guide, where I benchmark this graphics card and a very similar processor to this one, and there you can get a really nice idea of what 1080p gaming performance is possible with this budget CPU and GPU combo. Anyways, there is one con to this CPU and GPU combo, and it's that the 6500 XT doesn't come with a built-in decoder. So if you wanted to do any game recording or streaming with the 6500 XT, say on AMD Relive, you can't do that. But that is why I'm giving you two options for the CPU, that being the 12100 and 12100F, because one includes integrated graphics and the other doesn't. And with the one that includes integrated graphics, that being the 12100, you have the opportunity to take advantage of the Intel QuickSync decoder, which is similar to NVENC for NVIDIA. It's kind of like its own decoder for the Intel HD graphics, and there you can use that for not only OBS or Streamlabs to record and stream your games, but you can even use it to accelerate your video editing or media creation on apps from Adobe and other things like that. So it's a pretty neat CPU and GPU combo, and there's about a $20 difference between the 12100 and the 12100F. So if you want to do content creation on top of streaming, get the 12100. Otherwise, if it's just for gaming, get the 12100F. For $400, I've chosen the i3 12100F and the Radeon RX 6600, and in comparison to the last combo, this one is going to grant you substantially better graphics performance at 1080p, along with the same great processor. And this one comes with a built-in decoder, so you don't need to get the 12100. You can just stick it to the 12100F and save yourself a bit of money. So this is going to result in even better 1080p gaming performance, but not quite up there to run like the latest AAA high graphically demanding title at eye-watering graphical settings. For that, you're going to have to wait for the next two GPU and CPU combos I'll be talking about soon, but still, this is a very capable combo. If you're planning to run any popular PC title at 1080p like Fortnite, Valorant, Rocket League, Apex Legends, you know the drill, this is going to be plenty. You should be very satisfied with this. Now, if you're wondering where the RTX 3050 would fit into this combination, it doesn't. It costs the same as the RX 6600 at its lowest, but it's slower, and even with DLSS and ray tracing added on top of it, it still doesn't beat out the RX 6600 in terms of value and performance, and I made a full video covering that here, linked as a card on screen and in the description if you want to learn more. Now for $500, get yourself the same RX 6600, but this time pair it up with an i5 12400 or i5 12400F, and this is going to be very similar to the last CPU and GPU combo that we talked about, but this upgrade in processor is going to net you about 12% more performance at 1080p over the i3 with an extra 2 cores and 4 threads. So it's going to be even better setup for you if you plan to use this i5 long term. And again, you're going to get no questions asked 1080p gaming performance out of any of today's most popular PC titles. So another excellent CPU and GPU combination for the money. For $600, again sticking with the i5 12400, but you have two options for a graphics card, either the RTX 3060 or the Radeon RX 6600 XT. And this, in my opinion, is going to be great for those of you who want to get into entry-level 1440p gaming performance on any of today's most popular PC games. So similar to the last CPU and GPU combo, but go up in resolution. Now, if you're wondering which of these two graphics cards should I choose for my system, well, at least for the RX 6600, it is less expensive than the RTX 3060. I believe at its lowest point, it is up to $60 less. But in terms of gaming performance, the 6600 XT is just barely faster than the RTX 3060. However, the 3060 comes with 12 gigabytes of VRAM and support for better ray tracing and DLSS. So if it were me, I would choose either one of these cards depending on which one is on a hefty discount on the day that you're speccing out your system. If the 3060 is on a really good discount for below $450, definitely choose it. But if the RX 6600 XT is well below $400, I would choose this card. Both of these are pretty on par and both offer a good amount of features and performance, just this one is cheaper than this one. Now for $700, again stick with the same i5-12400, but now you can choose either between a 3060 Ti or RX 6700 XT. And don't worry, the i5-12400 here is still going to be able to fully utilize either of these graphics cards. There should be no bottlenecking. So this is going to be for no questions asked 1440p gaming. Any game you want to run at that high resolution, these two cards should be able to do it quite well at a high frame rate, which will be a pretty big step up from the last CPU and GPU combo that we talked about. Now, if you're wondering between which of these two cards to choose, I would look at the 6700 XT a little more so than the 3060 Ti because it costs $70 less on average, all the while being about the same in terms of 1080p, 1440p, and even 4K gaming performance. These two cards are pretty evenly matched, even though the 6700 XT does cost a bit less. However, this time around, this card only comes with 8GB of VRAM, and this comes with 12. And if you're spending this much on a CPU and GPU combination, I like to think you'd be getting a card with above 10GB of VRAM. So for being much less than the 3060 Ti and offering more VRAM up front and being basically the same in terms of performance, I look more so to the 6700 XT for a $700 CPU and GPU combo.
Do you want to create your own
Once again, stick it with the RX 6700 XT in my opinion, or the 3060 Ti if it's on a good discount, but this time upgrade your processor to an i5-12600K or 12600KF, and this will net you even better gaming performance, now with a 6-core processor with an addition of 4 E-cores, since the 12400 is just straight up 6 cores, but the 12600KF is technically a 10-core processor, so even better for gaming performance if you want to keep a CPU for the long run. Now for $1,000, stick it with the i5-12600K or 12600KF, but for the graphics card, you can either go with an RX 6800 or a GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. So this will be, I think, ideal for ultra-wide 1440p gaming performance if you plan to pick up, say, a 34-inch gaming monitor, and that should be able to fully utilize the resolution while staying at a fairly high frame rate. As for between the two cards though, and the 6800 and the 3070 Ti, the 3070 Ti here is actually less expensive than the 6800. However, it is noticeably slower across the board. Not to mention, you're playing with a card with 10GB of VRAM versus a 6800 which has 16GB of VRAM. So I'd say if the 3070 Ti is on discount for below $700, I would choose that card. Otherwise, if the 6800 comes anywhere near or below $850, I put my money on this just for that extra VRAM and better 1080p, 1440p, and 4K gaming performance, all the while maybe running a little bit cooler. Actually, don't quote me on that. It depends on the cooler, on the graphics card itself. From here on out, we're just entering the realm of ridiculousness. Really choosing one graphics card or processor over the other isn't going to be a humongous difference, because at the end of the day, you're just going to get ridiculously quick frame rates at very eye-watering resolutions. But just to continue the trend, for $1,200, you can either go with an RTX 3080 10GB graphics card or a Radeon RX 6800 XT paired up with an i7 12600K or 12700KF. So you're getting a bump in terms of the processor to an 8-core, 4E-core processor with even better gaming performance and probably better longevity with those extra cores, now with even faster graphics cards. Now between the 6800 XT and 3080, I'd actually put a little bit of emphasis on the 3080 because not only is it on par with the 6800 XT, this is a bit quicker at 4K. If you wanted to do a bit of 4K gaming on, say, this $1,000, this $1,200 CPU and GPU combo. Now to close out the video at $1,500, and you really shouldn't be complaining about PC performance at this point. You're getting close to the best of the best. I'd go with a Radeon RX 6900 XT, and for the processor, either an i9-12900 from Intel or a Ryzen 5800X 3D. So I would only consider that Ryzen option, since it is technically the best gaming processor out there, if you already have an X570 motherboard lying around, or if you have one from a friend, just because its gaming performance is the best for a realistic price. Though the i9-12900 is on a newer platform that can support DDR5, which you probably care about if you're spending $1,500 on a CPU and GPU combo. So I'm giving either a choice, but if you're building something from scratch, you're probably going to want to go with that i9 since it's a new system. As for the graphics card here, the 6900 XT is the best from AMD, and you can get this graphics card now for below $1,000, so it's an even better value. And this is meant to go up against the 3080 Ti, 3090, and in some cases the RTX 3090 Ti, but those higher end Nvidia cards are still way overpriced, and this is just chilling below $1,000. So for a $1,500 CPU and GPU combo, this is the zenith for what AMD can offer, and you can get it for an excellent price right now. I would only consider the competing Nvidia option, the RTX 3080 12GB graphics card, if you really care about ray tracing in your games, if you're one of those people, or if you're a serious content creator who's using CUDA supported applications day in, day out. And I mean day in, day out. Otherwise, this 6900 XT purely for gaming would be my choice. Ooh, but with all of that, and I have a lot of graphics card and processor boxes scattered.
Ada update lah pula. Betul.
Dianya macam tu lah.
Uh. Alright, let's go. Nah, that correct, guys. Let's go.
Rebirth of the dead. Marking drop point for your team. You'll lead them in. Zombies. Last team for the new.
Give money. Give money. Give money. Money, money. Money. Yo, give money. Yo. He doesn't hurt. Yeah. Money, give money.
Situation is getting rough.
Drop the money. Hello. Drop the money. Nope. Hey, what's up, Mama Basri? Thank you for coming by. Welcome to the stream. Nani the kuri. What's up? How you doing, Basri? Sihat ke tu? Apa khabar? Teammate aku noob sial. No buy station. You have to find buy station to buy.
Station there. Check your map.
3,000 per person. Buy teammate. Yo, you can buy teammate here. You can buy teammate back. Oh my god, there's no. Oh noob. Oh nope. Kau tengok tu bos, teammate aku noob nak mampus. Kalau aku dapat teammate noob nak mampus. Dia tak tahu main sang teruk weh. Biar diucap selamat tinggal usang. Ada kat yang ku nantikan. Thank you Basri for coming by. Welcome to the stream. Nah ni dia kuri-kuri. Padamu Tuhan, aku berserah, tapi enemy tembak dari belakang, tembak dari belakang, sampai asyik nak backstep. Lawanlah depan enemy. Kenapa kau begitu push hunter? Nak tunjuk kat enemy. Enemy sangat tak guna. Enemy sangatlah dua. Dapat teammate tu lah Petit Toyim. Tembak lari Shadow Slack pun tak tahu macam mana nak main. Asyik dapat ultimate begini. Nak menangis pun rasa bersalah. Sama no order. Nangis pun tak begini deh. Mencoba hancur cintaku ini. Oh dulu happy streaming, happy gaming. Fazil Rostam, thank you so much for the donation dude. Terima kasih for the 200 donation. Semoga dimurahkan rezeki dipanjangkan umur, diperbaikan lagi lupa kurang rahmatnya untuk Fazil Rostam for the 200 star donation. Mantap deh kali-kali. Let's go. Let's go.
Anybody need this?
Okay lah guys. Besok guys. Aku dah tak larat dah sebenarnya. Aku dah rabak sebenarnya. Aku dah rabak sebenarnya.
Dah down seorang. Satu
Dah penat lah. Jom kita raid cucu lah. Cucu. The gaming Jamie cucu. Aku dah tak larat ke? Aku dah burn out dah. Thank you guys for watching. Good night episode dream. 2 jam je. 2 jam setengah je.